Hey there, storytellers. Have you ever lost faith in your writing? Maybe you stop believing that the book you're working on is any good. Maybe you lose faith that you're going to be able to finish it at all. Maybe you lose faith that you're meant to be a writer to begin with. I'm going to guess, since I'm a writer, just like you, and I know about these things, that you said yes to at least one of those questions because we all struggle with this idea of having faith in ourselves as writers, having faith in the project that we're working on, having faith that it's even worth our time to be struggling with these issues at all. So, this is our topic today, having faith in ourselves and our work. Where does this faith come from when we do have it? And where does it go when it seems to disappear? Importantly, is there a way to get it back? And perhaps even more importantly, do we need to have faith in our work to be writers? Does it even matter? These are the questions I want to grapple with in today's live stream. If you're here live, I am so glad to have you here live. I want you to get busy in the comments for sure. And if you're watching the replay, of course, you can get busy in the comments as well. And I also want to tell you that there is going to be homework for this live stream. I have a little assignment for you all. So I really do want you to hang around until the end. All right, before we get started, let me introduce myself in case you are new here. I am Mary Rose Wood. I am an author. I'm best known for writing middle grade fiction. I've been doing this for a long time. I've got 14 published novels out, all with big five publishers. If you know what that means, that's like, the big traditional publishing houses like Random House and HarperCollins and those guys. And I am looking forward to making an announcement soon about what's coming next for me, because I do have some good news in the pipeline, but we will hold on to that for another day. I'm also the founder of Path of the Storyteller, which is my own platform for teaching and mentoring writers. And it's a wonderful community. If you are here watching this, welcome. I already consider you part of the Path of the Storyteller family. Speaking of the Path of the Storyteller family, let me say hi to some folks who are already showing up, commenting in the comments. Hey, Terry, it is so great to have you here. Terry is already on board today's topic. Did I ever have faith? How did I lose it? Why? So many questions. I agree, Terry, and I hope that we can find some answers for you today. Terry also says she loves homework. Good. You're going to get some. Nancy, great to see you here today. I'm glad you're excited about this topic, as am I. Before we move into our content today, I also want to welcome anybody who's new to the Path of the Storyteller community to visit the website and help yourself to a free download. It's 30 writing prompts, and I think you'll have a lot of fun doing them, not only because they kind of get you, in a nice routine of writing a little something every day, if you want to work on them every day, but also they will sneak in a kind of training and story structure that you won't even feel going down. It's the proverbial spoonful of sugar. These are 30 writing prompts that are designed to kind of coax you through story structure from beginning to middle to end. I think you might learn something by doing them, and hopefully it'll boost your productivity as well. This is completely free. You just go to the website, www.pathofthestoryteller.com/challenge, enter your email address, and I will send them to you. So help yourself to the freebie. All right, let's dive into our topic today, faith. Faith. The definition of faith, a simple definition of faith, let's say, is belief without evidence, right? And we can have belief without evidence in a wide variety of areas of endeavor in our lives. But I think many people also hear the word faith and immediately think of it as a theological or spiritual concept, which is all to the good. And so I feel that it is only fitting for me to start this discussion of faith by referring to one of my sacred texts. It is one I think that most of you will be familiar with. I am speaking, of course, of Miracle on 34th Street, one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Christmas movie. It is a classic. It is an absolutely wonderful film. And the topic of faith is its theme. It is the story of a little girl named Susie who does not believe in Santa Claus. Ha! A crisis of faith indeed. She doesn't have evidence, therefore, she does not believe. Now, the definition of faith offered to little Susie in Miracle on 34th Street is as follows: faith is believing in things when common sense tells you not to. I think this is a perfectly good definition of faith. It's not only belief without evidence, it's actually tougher than that. It's more of a challenge than that. It's belief without evidence and also kind of in spite of common sense, which I think is a really interesting thing to talk about. There's a phrase that I would also toss into the mix, which is this phrase I'm sure you've heard, the received wisdom about a topic, which is a way of saying what everybody knows, sort of what the people say about it, what's kind of broadly considered to be the common sense about a certain topic. Okay, so the received wisdom or the common sense. So this is how we're going to start out this definition of faith: belief without evidence and perhaps in spite of the received wisdom or common sense, if you will, about a topic. So the topic today is writing. It's our writing. And the truth is that when we start out as writers, we really don't have a ton of evidence, do we? We may not have published anything yet. In fact, if we're just starting out, chances are we haven't. If we're just starting out, we may not have finished anything yet. We may have started projects, but not finished them. And if we haven't even worked up the nerve to begin, we may have nothing but our desire to write as evidence that we should be having some faith in ourselves as writers. So this is definitely a situation where faith is called for because we have no evidence. I want to just also point out, though, that this lack of evidence is not only a faith challenge for beginning writers, and I know that it is. I do know that it is. But it is a challenge also for writers who are further along on their journey, who may be published, might be professional writers, maybe they're very successful, because it's just one of the truths of the work of any creative person, in a sense, that you're only as good as your next book. So even when you have a track record, what you have is experience of what you've done in the past. You have the evidence that you were able to do it then, but you don't have any evidence that you're able to do it now or tomorrow. And I am an experienced author and I have a lot of books published. So I'm sort of in the category of understanding that evidence that you've done stuff in the past is not an automatic pass on feeling like I, of course, have total unshakable faith in my ability to continue doing what I've done in the past, because time doesn't work that way, right? We still sort of are operating from a place of faith that we'll be able to pull yet another rabbit out of the hat. I hope you all understand that feeling. So this is the truth about writing. Evidence is scarce. Evidence is scarce. So let's look at this idea of doing it also in spite of not only lack of evidence, but in spite of common sense, this received wisdom. Now, those of you who are here live, I see some of you already in the comments and some of you watching who haven't introduced yourself yet. I challenge you now to think about what received wisdom about writing you have heard. I'm going to share some of the ones that came to mind for me right off the top of my head. The received wisdom about writing. The first thing that came to my mind was, well, you can't make a living at it. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that about being a writer, right? That's kind of the common sense about being a writer. Another piece of received wisdom about being a writer is that, it's just a matter of talent. You either do it or you don't do it. You either have it or you don't. So if you sit down to work, say, and it's not easy, then you just don't have the knack. So, right? That's a fairly common belief. Not one that I subscribe to, by the way, but it is part of the received wisdom. Another piece of common sense about writing, my air quotes are in full display here, is that you have to know someone to have a career as a writer, right? You have to have an in. You have to have an uncle in the publishing industry, or maybe you went to, your college roommate is now a big exec at some agency. Like, you have to have an in. And that's something that people say all the time, as if it were just law, as if it were just the truth of stuff, but it really isn't, it's just this received wisdom. So this feeling that it's impossible to get an agent, to get published, to make a living at it, blah, 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 blah. This is all in the air. All of this is the quote unquote common sense, right? So in a sense, common sense is telling us not to. We have no evidence, and common sense is telling us not to. If you yourself have got some received wisdom stuck in your mind, some voice that is the common sense that's telling you not to, I would love for you to post it in the comments so that your fellow storytellers can share their own ideas. There's a lot of it out there, a lot of common sense telling us not to. So when it comes to this idea of having faith in ourselves as writers, having faith in our work, we are really up against a lot. We really do have very little evidence, common sense telling us not to. And I want to also talk about the idea of faith itself, because it's kind of hard to pin down even when we have it. Like, what is it exactly? It is not a tangible thing. If you ask yourselves the kind of questions that are meant to diagnose the level of faith you have in yourself as a writer and the level of faith you have in your work, they're questions about belief, right? Do you believe in yourself? Do you believe in this book? Do you believe in this project that you're working on? Do you believe that it's good or it's going to be good? Do you believe firmly that you're going to be able to bring it to the finish line, even if that means, spending a year drafting it and another year revising it? Do you believe that it's going to find a home in the world and going to find readers? It's just a lot of belief. This is what we talk about when we talk about faith. Now, I want to point something out in case it's not evident. The belief is essentially a feeling. It's a feeling. It's a feeling of belief. And like all feelings, it is not fixed. Feelings come and go, right? Our emotions are very mutable. They're changeable. And a feeling of belief is going to come and go. It is changeable. It's not fixed because it's a feeling. And so this fluctuation in our faith in ourselves is inevitable when we think about how changeable feelings are. So if we're pinning our productivity, our sense of our identity as writers, our work schedule even, on an idea like faith, which is a feeling, this feeling of belief, and we recognize that it's a changeable thing, then we've set ourselves up for trouble, right? Because we've decided that having faith in our work is essential, that it's a kind of a precursor to being effective, to doing the work. And so when we lose faith, we identify it as a huge problem. What we are saying essentially is that we are operating from a belief. I hope you guys are following me here. Let me know if you want me to slow down or say more simply. But when we think that a crisis of faith is really a big problem, what we are revealing is that we are operating from a belief that we have to feel a certain way to do the work, that our feelings, our emotions have to be lined up in a certain way in order to write, in order to call ourselves writers, in order to do the work. Feelings are changeable. They are like the weather. And so if we decide that our feelings are a precursor to our work, it's like the writers who say, well, I have to feel inspired. I have to feel like I'm in the zone. I have to be in the mood. I have to be filled with the feeling of belief before I can actually get to work or keep at the work. When we put our feelings in charge like that, I want you to consider that there is something fundamentally passive about this way of thinking, that this is essentially a passive approach. We've let our changeable, mutable emotions be put in charge of our creative work. I guess what I want you to understand, trust me on this, or at least be willing to use it as a thought exercise. You don't have to feel one way or the other about it in order to sit down and work on your book. You do not need to be in the mood. You do not need to feel inspired. You do not need to be in any kind of zone. You don't need any of these feelings. You know what you do need, though? You do need to put your butt in the chair. That's the feeling that you need to cultivate, is the feeling of your behind sitting in a chair in front of your laptop or your yellow pad or whatever your practice is, however you actually do the work. This is the feeling. It's a very tactile feeling. This is the one that you need to cultivate. This feeling of belief that we call faith in our work is very nice. Just like being in the zone is nice, being in the mood is nice, feeling eager to get to work is nice. That's all very nice. It's nice when our feelings are pleasant. And it's nice when our feelings are aligned with what it is that we actually have to do. It's very nice, but it's not essential. It's optional. Having our feelings lined up with what we need to do is optional. It's not even really something we can control. I want to tell you what's not optional. Commitment. Commitment is what's not optional. Feelings, being in the mood, optional. Commitment, not optional. So let's pivot a little bit from this idea of do we believe in ourselves to the idea of have we committed to do the work? Because one is optional and one is not. Now, commitment sounds heavy, like, what does it mean to commit? Well, we all know what it means to commit, right? People make all kinds of commitments. If you think of vows that we take in life, these are commitments. I think one of the vows that many people take is a vow of marriage, right? There are marriage vows. There are other kinds of vows as well. There are oaths of office. Sometimes people in certain lines of work have to take an oath of office. If you join the military, there's an enlistment oath. If you're a doctor, there's a Hippocratic oath where you promise to do no harm, right? This is funny, but also admirable that even, if you work for the post office, you're going to deliver the mail in bad weather. Everybody knows this quote, right? It's not technically an oath, but it's kind of like the unofficial motto. Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night, right, will prevent our couriers from the swift completion of their service. That's commitment. Now, we are writers, so nobody meets us at the door, at the enlistment office when we sign up to be writers and says, okay, it's time to make your vow. It's time to take your oath of office. What is the oath of office that we swear to? It is the commitment to do the thing that we're committing to do, whether or not we're in the mood to do it. It operates on a much different level of that. To make a commitment is an action that we take. It's a choice that we make. We stand up in public. We sign on the dotted line. We raise our right hand. We commit. It's active. The feeling of belief is not active in that way. It's something that's really nice when we have it, but we can't actually control our feelings in that way. try to go through life controlling your emotional state. It doesn't really work that way, does it? So I promised you that I was going to give a little homework for this live stream, and we're not done yet, but I want to give you the homework now so that you understand what I'm driving at. I want you personally, as a writer, to write the oath of office that you will then take. What commitment are you willing to make to your writing? This isn't about your belief. It's not about your faith in yourself as a writer. It's about the commitment that you are willing to make. Does that make sense? All right. I'm going to challenge you all to really write it out and to really write it as an oath of office, whether it's something like the motto of the post office. Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night will prevent you from, writing your 500 words. Whether it's something more personal and profound, whether it has to do with the purpose for your writing, what you hope to accomplish with your writing, or whether it's very logistical, like how you promise to go about nurturing your writing, actually executing your writing, whether it has to do with the work in progress, or whether it has to do with your full journey as an artist, as a storytelling artist. That's all up to you. Let that be personal, right? But I want you to write your writer's vow. I want you to write a writer's vow that you feel comfortable taking, okay? And I would love to see them. I would absolutely love to see these oaths, these writer's vows. So if you're here live, come back when you've written it and post it in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, come back when you've written it and post it in the comments. It's about what you commit to do, the principles you swear to uphold as a storyteller. And I think that we will all really benefit from sharing these. All right. So this is what I have to say about faith. And so I want to go back to our inspirational text, Miracle on 34th Street. And I want to quote Kris Kringle himself, who is a character in the film. And I certainly, believe in Kris Kringle as portrayed in Miracle on 34th Street. This is what he says. Remember, Susie is our hero, our doubting hero in this film. This is what Kris Kringle says to Susie, who's really a tough nut to crack when it comes to believing in Santa Claus. He says, now, wait a minute, Susie. Just because every child can't get his wish doesn't mean there isn't a Santa Claus. So even Kris Kringle, the character, reminds us that, taking a vow, swearing our writer's oath, cultivating, the little feeling of belief whenever we can find it, enjoying it. It's not always going to be easy, right? Like it's not going to necessarily go easily. Even after taking your writer's oath, you may struggle to keep it, right? That doesn't mean there isn't a Santa Claus, people. All right. I do want to end with some positive energy for you all. Despite the fact that we must proceed most of the time with a lack of evidence, and despite all those sort of negative common sense, received wisdom lurking out there in the world and also in the inner landscape of all the voices in our heads that we have been accumulating since we were very little, I do want to offer you some things that you can unequivocally believe in. All right. This is stuff you can count on. I have a list of 5. All right. If you may have more, and please feel free to add them. There is both evidence and common sense to support the things I'm about to tell you. All right. The first thing, and it's so key, it's so foundational, something that you can take to the bank is the meaning and enduring importance of storytelling. When you're a writer and you make up stories and you write novels, you are part of a long lineage of storytellers who have been engaged in this very work since the beginning of whenever humans began, right? Since the beginning, humans have been storytelling creatures. Humans have loved story. The shape of story is how we give meaning to our very existence. We tell our lives as a story. It's just how we think. So when you participate in this work, you have so much evidence in favor of knowing that the work itself is important. It has always been important, and it will continue to be important and well worth doing. There is evidence. Here's the second thing I want you to have rock solid faith in, and you have evidence for this as well. I want you to believe in your ability to learn. Stories are all about change. Learning is change. It's a kind of change, right? When we learn something new, we are now changed. We were a person that didn't know how to do that, and now we are a person who knows how to do it, all right? And if you believe in your ability to learn, you will understand that the very problems that are causing you to doubt yourself today are solvable. They are going to be easily solved once you learn how. And so wherever you are on your path, right, on your writer's path, know that you have the ability to learn and change. And the way things are today is not going to be the way they stay. You don't let yourself be thwarted by what seems like an insoluble problem today. What's insoluble today will be easy to solve very soon. You just need to learn how. Okay, I want you to believe in your ability to learn. Similarly, I want you to believe that practice will make you better. Now, there's so much evidence for this. There's scientific evidence. There's so much proof. You are not immune to this proof. Practice will make you better. The more you write and the more you practice the things you learn as you strive to improve as a writer, the better you're going to be. So once again, you have to believe that your practice is going to make you a better writer. And so the most illogical thing to do is stop. You won't improve if you stop practicing. You'll only improve if you stay with it, if you keep at it. There is proof of this. The evidence is everywhere you look. People who practice improve. The people who are the masters of any endeavor are the ones who practice the most. That's just the way it goes. Similarly, the fourth thing that I want you to believe in is compound interest. Now, those of you who've, recently done your taxes might be thinking about compound interest in a financial way. And of course, it is something that we think about when we put money in the bank instead of a piggy bank, like an interest-bearing account, instead of just putting it in a box someplace. But what I want you to understand is that the value of everything compounds over time. And this is also mathematically provable, right? And it's true of what we do with our lives as well. If we have a habit of writing a little bit, of studying our writing a little bit, of, reading craft books or taking a class or joining a program like Path of the Storyteller, submitting our work for feedback. If we cultivate habits that are designed to support our writing, that compounds over time. It's not one and done. And this is especially true with your daily habits. And if your daily habits include some time to work on the book that's making you have a crisis of faith right now, you don't actually have to believe in compound interest for it to accrue. It simply will. So keep working on the book. Don't worry about your feelings. Think about your oath of office as a writer and trust the law of compound interest. Just keep putting it in. and it will escalate. The work will pay off over time. You won't see it all today, but the value of what you're doing with consistency will reveal itself sooner than you think. Another powerful argument for sticking with it. And the fifth thing that I want to remind you to believe in, to have faith in, is this idea that we've explored today, which is this: that commitment is more important than faith. All right. Commitment is something that you are in charge of. Your feelings, be friends with them. Watch them come and go. Some days they're going to be the wind in your sails, and other days they're going to be a headwind that you've got to lean against. That's okay. It's just weather. It's just weather. We don't get to control from which direction the wind is blowing. Okay? Don't worry about it. On days that you've got a headwind, maybe you're not going to make as much progress as the days that your sails are filled. But it doesn't matter. Don't take it personally. It's just the wind. What matters is that your commitment is strong, and that you're thinking about the importance of the work that you're doing, that you trust your ability to learn, that you know that the practice itself will make you better, and that your efforts today, even if they seem very minor, are going to compound over time. They absolutely will. So this is why I just want to conclude with this idea that commitment is more important than faith. It's nice when our feelings are nice, but it's not essential. It's not a prerequisite. And, if you are the sort of person, and I think most of us are, that benefits from raising your right hand, signing an oath, right? Taking a vow in public. There are reasons that these rituals have this community quality, right? We often take our oaths of office or make our vows standing in the town square in some way, like symbolically speaking. Why is this? It makes us accountable. It makes us accountable to others and to our community. And this kind of accountability is a great structure. It really puts some guardrails on our commitments. And so if you worry that you're going to struggle, even if you make a commitment, take your vow, make your oath of office. If you worry that you're going to struggle keeping it, I want you to ask yourself, well, have you made this vow in the town square where everyone can see you? Where can you find the structure of accountability that is going to help keep you honest to your commitment? Do you need to put yourself in a situation where you have a deadline? Maybe there's something that you want to submit to that has a deadline. Or maybe you're in a critique group that meets once a month and it's your turn next. And so that gives you a deadline. Are you part of any kind of writing community where you're surrounded by people who are going to hold you accountable and keep you honest? Are you in a program? Do you get to hang out with other writers? I strongly encourage you to do this. And there's a lot of benefits. There's all kinds of benefits to being part of these various communities. But not the least of them is this quality of accountability, of making our oaths and vows in public, right? Of standing up before the town and saying, I promise I'm going to deliver the mail no matter how bad the weather is. Like, yes, go ahead and do it. It will make a huge difference. So that's what I've got to offer you guys today. I'm very excited to see your homework. I'm really serious about this homework idea. So I want you to consider writing your own vow of commitment as a writer. What is your oath of office? It can be short, it can be long, it can be serious, it can be funny, but I think it's going to be a really, really useful exercise. And I can't wait to hear how it goes for you. That's what I have for you today. I am going to just cast a quick glance over the comments to see if anybody's got any questions. Oh, Nancy shared a great one here. Nancy shares that she's mostly a children's book writer, and that one of the pieces of common sense or received wisdom about being a children's book writer is that writing for children is easier than writing for adults. Nancy, as a fellow children's book writer, I sign off on this so wholeheartedly. I hear that a lot. People think that writing children's books is easier than writing for adults. It is not. Those of us who do it know that it is not. It is, I often think of that great quote that Ginger Rogers famously quipped when asked about Dancing with Fred Astaire and how she didn't get the credit that she deserved. And while he was widely acclaimed as the greatest dancer of all time. And she's like, yeah, I do everything he does, but backwards and in high heels. Children's book writers are often in this position. Like, we have to deal thematically with the same kinds of deep, complex topics. We have to tell a fantastic story. Sometimes we have to be funny. We have to do all the things that all storytellers do, but we also have to do it in such a way that we're going to engage a reader who owes us nothing, who literally does not care if the New York Review of Books declares it's the greatest novel of all time. They need to be engaged page after page after page. And so we have to hit a very, very high bar. We also create work that our readers experience, have their first encounter with, while they are still forming their view of life and their sense of self. And this is not necessarily true when we write for adults. Adults are sort of finished. Most of them are sort of all done. They've already made up their minds about most things. But write a book that a 10-year-old takes to heart, and you have become part of the fabric of how that person is going to think about life forever. And if you ask yourself about the books that just blew your mind when you were that age, this is true. It's the books that we read when we were young that, helped us decide who we were and what kind of lives we wanted to have. It's really, really true. I love that, Nancy. Thank you so much for sharing it. So much. So, all right, gang. So pleased to have you here today. I'm also grateful, and I want to, without calling out anybody's name, because I don't know if it feels private or not. This was a real question that was submitted to me. This question about how to carry on when you've lost faith in your writing. And so I know that it's true, and I know that it's important. And I hope that today's talk is of benefit about it. But I also want to say, I'm so grateful when writers actually let me know what's on their minds. And if anybody out there, whether you're here live or watching the replay, has a topic, writing related, having to do with the craft, story structure, or the mindset issues that are so important and that really play such a big role in whether or not we're able to do the work that we set out to do, like today's topic is definitely a mindset issue. Please feel free to let me know. It's very, very helpful. I really love to know what's on your mind. And I think some of our best topics for these live streams have been suggestions from some of you storytellers out there. Okay, so don't be shy. I really do want to know. That's why we have comments. Use them. Let me just share this URL for anyone who came late. There's a freebie at the Path of the Storyteller website. It's a collection of 30 writing prompts, which I think you will enjoy. You can download them at www.pathofthestoryteller.com/challenge. And it is a great way to get a little bit of a accountability going. If you have a collection of 30 writing prompts, I mean, that's something that you can commit to, right? You're going to do all 30. The only thing I suggest is to do them in order. Why? Because they are designed to lead you through story structure. So you'll get all the benefit out of them if you do them in order. Thank you all so much for coming today. I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, which is when we go live on this YouTube channel. If you're not a subscriber to the YouTube channel, please, what are you waiting for? Please click the subscribe button. If you like this content, give it a thumbs up. It's a big help to me, and I always really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing y'all next time. And until then, happy writing.